Hello and welcome to the next level. We have a special guest with us tonight. Wave to your special guest. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Pointing is hard.
Right, so now that we got that over with, welcome and thank you, Greg, for joining us while Gildy is off this week. Carolyn, Gildy, same thing. Straight to the announcements. Announcements this week are a reminder that from here on out, we'll be doing every other week. So next week, the 4th of August, we will not be streaming, but we'll be back on the 10th, and then every 2 weeks after that.
The 3rd of August.
Is it? Oh, right, because everything I see from work is from the 4th
Tuesday.
of August, and
Yep.
that's the Tuesday. So yes, we're not streaming on the 3rd or the 4th, either of those 2 days. All right, so our offer for tonight, we're going to do something special with our special guest. So what is a piece of advice that our special guest character, once you meet them, will be giving the group and the characters, or maybe just a specific person. So go ahead and give us some fun, interesting, weird, or maybe even deep pieces of advice that they could potentially pass on, and Greg will choose one, and some point weave it in seamlessly to the narrative, and yes, make sure that it works. Yes, unfortunately, Rob is also not feeling so hot tonight, so we're not going to have any roles for Jacob, but we can pick up that next week and see what happens with Jacob and redo and how that goes. All right, so getting back into the stream of things, as a quick catch-up from last week, our characters are at the Temple of the Archmage, where they came for some, not necessarily rest and relaxation, but for a little bit of a break and a little bit of respite from the outside world, and to do some research and find out about some of the various things they're looking into, also to hand off and hand over and hide Gildy's child Morgan and their friend Brotto. And also the statue that had been brought with them. I'm not sure if we've fully decided exactly where that is yet. If we've handed that over to be hidden with the heart, we can figure that out in a moment or two. But yes, we came, we saw, we conquered. There was some upheaval with Talon and a gnome named Gerbo, who stole the heart of the Archmage and escaped with it. Our heroes and a large group from the temple went to track them down, found out that they had been captured by denizens of the Shadow Forest, and were just about to be dragged into one of the dark shadow domes where everyone feared that they might not be retrievable, when our heroes, in a very daring and quick-acting series of events, were able to get Gerbo back and teleport quickly back to the temple with the heart and save the day. Last week there was also a bunch of research that was done, and Talon had a bit of a lightening of his conscience with some other things he was talking to the abbot about. So we'll pick up pretty much where we left off last time. I don't know if there's anything that we wanted to do that evening after dinner with some of the revelations that had come out, or if we're just going to rest and pick it up the next day. But I will hand it over to you, and you can let me know what happens.
After dinner.
Yeah, people had basically said that they had thought about talking about some things, but didn't want to like steal the thunder, and it sounded like everybody was just kind of ready to relax for the evening.
Call it a night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
given Leon's revelations, I think it was pretty much this is a good time to just
Just digest that. Yes. Talon, having had a bit of a day, he was sort of eager to kind of just go to bed. One, get some sleep to get caught up, and two, just sort of let a couple things sink in.
Here's a question. Leon, are you going to be asking to spend the night in the library again?
No, I don't think I need. Well, I mean, wait. I guess my other option. No, you know what? I will join my companions.
All right.
Yay!
And I will trance in our shared quarters
All right.
as long as they're nice enough. They're nice, right? They're
They
not.
are pretty basic. You've got a-
Sometimes they snore. I don't snore. I sleep soundly.
I will attempt to spend my 4 hours trancing with my companions.
All right. Just before you head in, so people are sort of heading up to bed. You just have this moment where you feel like lingering outside a little longer, sort of looking up at the night sky as the stars start to come out, and maybe you're not quite sure exactly why you chose to hang back, but a moment later, there's a voice that speaks next to you, saying, I have asked you to stay for a moment.
Okay, and this is just to Leon?
Yes.
Okay. And it was just in my head?
No, that was out loud.
Okay. Does it sound like the Archmage?
It does.
Okay. Then I will turn and try and get some indication from the Archmage of whether we're walking somewhere or whether I should just kneel right here.
You're probably not walking. If you would like to kneel, now would be this would be the place to do so. Yes.
Cool. Then I do so.
All right. She sort of gives a bit of a um, bit of a sort of a surprised laugh, and it's like, oh no, please rise.
Okay.
You
Then I rise.
done so much for me. I am very thankful. And yes, you of all people do not need to kneel to me. I do have a request, however.
Of course.
I will require the heart finder back.
That makes sense. And I sadly hand it over.
He's like, yes, in these times it was very useful to have in friendly hands. If it should ever fall into non-friendly hands, it could be very dangerous. So I will take that back, and she sort of lays a hand on your shoulder and is like, I very much appreciate you, what the work you did, and volunteering to go out and sort of bring Gerbo back and all of your friends going with you. Feel free to convey that to them. There will be another gift coming your way in the near future.
Thank you. I do have questions if you have time.
You cut out for a moment there.
Oh, I said, I do have questions if you have time. Am I still cutting out?
It might be me, actually. It might be on my end. We'll see. She sort of nods, like, for you, for what you have done. I will grant you 3 questions.
Is the evil in the Shadow Forest the Shadow Weaver?
It's like almost immediately she's like, look on his face is like, oh, I regret this. Yes.
Hmm. What is the best way to deal with the evil that's in the Shadow Forest?
The Shadow Weaver has more restrictions on him than even I do in terms of what we can do in this world. To take action, he must use his minions, his clerics, and those who follow him. So deal with them, and you deal with the Shadow Weaver.
Excellent. That answers another question that I was curious about. Shadow Weaver's clerks. Who sent Talon the Pegasus?
I did.
Oh, all right then.
And with a thank you again, she sort of fades into the night.
All right.
And yes, you join everybody else up in the rooms. It is a fairly basic room. There's 8 beds, each having sort of a chest that goes along with it. There are some curtains that sort of can be hung for, a bit of privacy between the beds, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's not a whole lot to it.
That's all right. I will slum it for the one night.
Okay.
Out of a sense of camaraderie.
Anybody else doing anything before you go to sleep?
Mint is going to bug Tor for some of that mead.
Tor right now is just kind of looking at the stuffy and thinking about it, and is happy to hand you the mead.
Oh, no questions asked, not even a frown
No.
at me, just hand me the mead sack. Oh, sweet. Yeah, I am very happy right now. I'm actually wondering, because he's so focused on the stuffy, if I can actually kind of make him forget that I have the mead sack and just come. I get at least a pint's worth out of it, I hope.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Leona's regretting her decision already. Right.
As sort of the things start to quiet down and people are settling, Leon, you're getting into position for your trance. You haven't necessarily started it yet, and I don't know if you'd sort of have the curtains drawn for a little privacy or not, but there's a small figure that sort of approaches the end of your bed, and it's like, excuse me.
Okay. So I pictured that I actually never use a bed. I just kind of sit cross-legged. So I was thinking if it was like a rectangular room, I would just kind of go to the far end from the door. Kind of if it was like, so if it was a rectangle and there were beds on either sides, then I would just go to the very far end from the door and just sit there, and would, before going to bed, after we were finished chatting and whatever for the evening, then that's when I would be pulling out my journal and writing in my journal.
All right. I just picture you sitting on a bed doing it. So yes, you can be under the window. The only window in the room is sort of opposite where the bed is.
Okay.
And but yeah, so you sort of catch this small figure who approaches you from one end of the room. It is very clearly Morgan, and they say, excuse me, I know you see you're writing there. I know you're probably writing really important things. You're a big, powerful wizard. Probably have lots of important things that you're taking care of. But could I just have a moment?
Of course. In private or here?
It doesn't need to be in private. I can talk quietly.
All right then.
And they say, looks like I'm going to be sticking around here for a while, and I think I'm fairly safe here. I don't think anybody who's looking for me is going to be able to find me here. But I heard that maybe there were some people that were looking for you, and because of me, maybe. So I think maybe you need this more than I do. And takes off the amulet that they're wearing around their neck and offers it to you.
Why, thank you. I was going to come and see you about this in the morning. As I had the same thought that you did. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. You got me out of the city, and you've been a great help for my mom, and it just keep an eye on her while you're sort of out there in the big dangerous world, and make sure nothing happens to her.
Oh, don't worry. Your mother is one of the people whom I respect the most in the entire world.
Oh. Wow. That's cool. And just turns around and goes back to bed.
All right.
All right.
It's too bad Carolyn wasn't here.
I know. Well, she can watch and catch up. Yes, have that moment. So the next morning, yes, assuming Leon is probably up a little bit earlier than the rest, but yes, you're all up and about. You have a day before you. There's sort of breakfast being served for the the monks and the residents here downstairs. How would you like to spend your day?
I think probably before everybody wakes up, because I was basically write in my journal, transfer 4 hours, sit and digest some of the stuff that I've read, and then go probably like sit on a rooftop while I was basically having Ranu fly around, but like be in Ranu's senses and stuff and just kind of fly around and enjoy that. And then once I was aware that other people were coming, then I would come down and join them for the morning meal kind of thing.
Sounds good. Yes, how would you like to spend your day today?
So, question for you, Rob: Do you have a way that Fenmira is coming into the story? Because if not, I'm happy to bring Fenmira into the story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So after breakfast, Talon basically kind of goes, puts all the stuff away and goes in search of one of his old instructors, because he, having met with the Archmage and there's spoken to the Archmage, and the Archmage kind of gave him something that indicated this would help him in discovering the truth of the voice. He's going to keep a lot of those details to himself, but he doesn't know what this is and needs to, maybe do a little research and find that out. And given he is currently not in the best, relationship with his mentor and potentially the abbot, although the abbot seemed pretty okay, Talon's going to go and search for one of the instructors that he had who was very caring, worked very hard to try to help Talon while he was here. And so Talon's going to go and search for Fenmira.
And we'll say that you just happen to know that this is one of her teaching days, so she'd probably be in the sort of the second level down of the temple is the classrooms, that sort of thing. So you could probably find her there.
Okay. Yeah. Talon will look in, inquire to see when Fenmira would be in between classes. And
well,
then...
it's still early. She probably hasn't started yet.
Okay. Yeah. So Talon will kind of go in search, and assuming he finds Fenmira, will kind of like knock on the door and say, "Hello."
Yep. So probably in a classroom, setting up for the day. Otherwise, sort of getting themselves prepared is Fenmira, and I will let her take it from there.
All right. So you would know what Fenmira looks like, but for the audience, Fenmira is a female rock gnome, lavender hair. Since the last time you saw her, she's probably got a few more scars, a couple burns, and is wearing a leather apron with what would look like a welder's mask. While she's setting up a bunch of relics around the classroom, and there's a few students who are a little bit more of the keeners who are already there. And she would see you when you walk in, just stop, turn to the class and say, "Class is canceled. Go home and read chapters 2 and 3 of Mordenkainen's treatise on cursed objects. These will come in very important tomorrow. I cannot stress this enough. Cursed objects for tomorrow. I will know if you did not read these. Believe me."
Awesome.
Class empties out.
Yeah. So once the last of the students kind of goes by, Talon approaches Fenmira and says, "Hello. It's been a while. For your reference, it's been about just over a year and a half."
It certainly has. 1.53 years, I think.
Talon kind of does that, like almost shocked, but then knows Fenmira quite well, and you would probably know better than I.
Probably, from what I recall.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm okay. I've a lot has happened since we saw each other last, but it's really good to see you.
Indeed, it's good to see you too. I was sad when you left.
I was sad to, feel I had to leave, but I think it was the right decision. And somewhat related to that decision, I kind of have a project that I could really use some help with.
Yes.
I've been looking for something or someone, and I was sort of given something that they said would help. And it's this tome, but I I was wondering if you could help me understand what it is and how it can help me.
Potentially. Do you have it with you?
I do. And Talon sort of, from his satchel, does a quick kind of glance around, make sure, no students have sort of arrived since or whatever, and um, kind of hands the tome out to you.
Okay. Pick it up. Anything of interest on the cover, the spine, first couple pages?
So, Talon, what languages do you speak?
I speak Giant, Common, and Elvish.
All right. Okay. Um, so what you actually, if, what languages does Finmira speak? I suppose that's a good question.
Celestial, Common, Deep Speech, Draconic, Elvish, and Gnomish.
Okay, good. I figured it was a bunch. So what you find interesting about this is you definitely get a sense of there's magic here. Something is imbued in this, and yet the draconic, and not even like regular draconic. This is like ancient draconic sort of lettering on it. Specifically says for Talon.
That's cute.
Okay. So I take it you have not really kept up with your arcane languages studies. We'll start with this. This one's your name.
This is my. It says my name?
Yeah. The really nice gold emboss that's been faded over what looks like a very long time. It says Talon. That's
Talon kind of like shuffles a little bit to get a better look from your perspective, the book, and Talon kind of has that like struggled face that you've seen many, many times before, because I said intellect and studies, never really good at those, and he's just like he's trying like and he's trying to make the letters work, and he's just like, oh, okay.
Okay, so it's a very old draconic. So I'm not surprised you don't. I doubt there's even very many fluent draconic speakers that would know this. But it's who gave you this?
Someone important. And yeah, they said it would help.
What is it you need help with? I'm guessing it's not translating a book.
No, but I also could use help with that. I'm trying to find someone who knows me, seems to have some influence over me, and I'm hoping that this will help me, find out more about them, and hopefully, give me enough power to stop them from influencing me.
So when Talon's mentioning someone having influence in all this, completely unintentionally, the fact that this goes in with the cursed objects I was talking about before, I'd like to make the first roll of the night on an insight check.
Sure, yeah.
Because you're being very cagey about it. Not a great roll, but kind of saved by my bonus.
Yeah, not bad. Are you trying to be deceptive, Talon, or are you just sort of walking around the truth?
I'm more walking around the truth. I'm not lying. I'm intentionally not lying.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not saying everything, which is apparent on many levels. So yeah, you would ask Tal, or you can keep asking Talon questions and you might get more information, but he is definitely trying not to say too much.
Yeah. So yeah, the impression you get is probably that not so much that Talon is trying to be sort of willfully deceptive, but yeah, just that there's perhaps a specific truth that he doesn't want to mention.
Okay. Okay, well, what can you tell me about the nature of the help that this book is supposed to give you? Did the person tell you that at all?
They didn't, but I was looking in one place, and I was told that I was looking in the wrong place, and they said that, one, I'm looking in the wrong place, and two, that this should help you. And they sort of left it at that. So I was hoping that maybe you could help me figure out how this can help me help myself.
Okay, I'm going to put the book down on the table and give it more of a look through, not just the cursory glance from before.
Give me an Arcana check.
All right. That is... unnatural 20.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is definitely good enough. So you look through the book, and what you find intriguing about it is there's a lot of information in here, but it seems to be very random information. So sort of you're flipping through, and there's stuff on languages and ancient languages. There's stuff on like math and geometry. There's stuff on here's some mystical elements, and how to work with and cast some spells. Like, it's varying different types of things. Also, you also just from innately flipping through it get a sense that it's sort of the sense of the TARDIS, right? There's more in here than this book actually holds. And yes, you definitely get a sense that perhaps that's some of what the magic is that is contained in this, is that there's just a lot of knowledge in here. But it's not like, some of it is advanced, but it's not like secret, like arcane lore knowledge. It's basic knowledge, it's some advanced knowledge. It's just a lot of knowledge.
Okay.
And yeah, the sense you get with an Arcana check of 20 is that chances are, if Talon spent a little bit of time with this book focusing on it, the equivalent of a short rest, that he could become attuned to it. And doing that, then he could potentially use this to gain insight and greater understanding, maybe not for a long period of time, but for some sort of bits of time.
Okay. Well, to me, there's not a lot directly applicable. There seems to be a lot of information in general. I think
what I will add, just for fun, is you sort of flip back just inside the cover to sort of that usual sort of splash page of, you know, title and that sort of thing. And it's not on the outside of the book, but on the inside of the book is written Tome of Enlightenment, written by Susine Nuarnu. And you would recognize that name as being the given name of the Archmage.
Okay. I think what would be best right now is if you read this for a little bit. I need to go get something. You can stay in this room. Just read through it for a little bit. Read through what you can. I need to go make sure the class knows everything's canceled, and I'll be back. Shouldn't be more than an hour to wrap everything up.
Okay, I'll do that.
Right.
And Talon will find a stool and a desk or whatever and kind of plunk himself down and think real hard and try to read the book.
Okay. So we'll sort of break from that for a moment as you leave Talon, and Talon reads for about an hour or so. Torok, potentially you found out some interesting information yesterday about things that might help you. Were you going to pursue any of that?
Yeah, Tor would want to go and start reading, specifically on the Fae at this point.
Okay.
Because that seems to be, if they've taken his memory away, then there's probably some information there that he can use. Not being a fan of libraries per se, I mean, he can read, but it's not really his forte. He'd probably drag Mint along with him.
Yeah.
If she'll come.
Given how things went yesterday. Yeah, so you go, and yes, some of the monks and sort of clerics will help you and sort of direct you to sections of the library talking about the Fae. Are you just wanting to read as much as you can, or is there something specific that you'd like to look for?
I think from Tor's perspective, it's let's just start from the beginning and find out. I mean, I don't know if there's specific ways. I don't know if he'd think he could find history of Fae memory wipes as a tome. So it's just let's get as much information as he can handle in one sitting.
All right, so you are sort of given a sort of a starter book. Why can I not? Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong spot. There we are. And it is essentially a tome on the Feywild and sort of, you know, the home of the Fey and sort of some basic information around that. And so things that you find out, just sort of quickly reading through this. So there are 5 courts in the Feywild. There is the Seelie Court, the Unseelie Court, the Summer Court, also known as the Sun Court, the Winter Court, also known as the Moon Court, and the Starry Court, also known as the Shadow Court. And that's sort of, it gives you sort of a brief description of each, which I'm not going to go over now, but it's sort of roughly sort of what you might imagine in the summer court or winter court or thing might be like. Some really quick things. So the Seelie Court is ruled by King Oberon. The Unseelie Court is ruled by Queen Morgane. The Summer Court is ruled by Queen Titania, who had once been Oberon's queen. The Winter Court is ruled by King Lahadon, who is Morgane's brother. And the Starry Court is ruled by Princess Luna, who is the daughter of Morgane and Lahadon, and also just a little bit strange. So I'll start you off with that, sort of given sort of some things that you find out while you're looking at things, and we can sort of give you more information on Feywild stuff offline. But yeah, you start learning about some of the Feywild courts and a little bit about different types of Fey just from sort of this starter tome. And Mint, assuming you're sort of helping with sort of maybe it's a couple volumes, sort of learning along the same lines at the same time. All right, and Leon, what are you looking for?
So, excuse me. I mean, like, I joined everybody for breakfast, and then I was wanting to talk to Talon and or Torok and or Jacob. But everybody went off to do research without Leon.
That's funny.
Yeah, funny. Haha. I share my heart with everyone, and then they're just like, all right, see ya, I'm off to do research.
In honor of you.
Yeah, without me.
We were assuming you had better things to do.
So I go looking for Talon and or Torok.
All right.
Because I turn around, we'll say like at breakfast, I basically go and turn around and everybody's gone. And I'm like, wait, where'd everybody go?
All right. We'll say it's easier to find Torok. You can find them in sort of the main area of the library that you're used to being in and doing research in. And Torok and Mint are there looking through some books. You can easily approach them.
Okay. So I just walk over and stand there for a second, and then if no one acknowledges my presence,
oh no, Tor would acknowledge you immediately. Leon, would you care to join us?
Certainly. What is it that you're doing?
Trying to understand the Fae.
Oh, I see. Well, yes, of course. I'd be happy to assist. Is this the research that you were doing yesterday?
This is based on information I got yesterday.
I see.
But I'm starting at, and Tor holds up the book. I seem to be at the beginning.
Yes.
There's
Beginner's Guide to the Fae, yes.
The Idiot's Guide to the Fae.
That is the best place to start, of course. And have you had a chance to talk to anyone about the spell?
I had not. I was going to eventually ask you about that if you had time. But I figured learning about this I could do and not impose on you. But it's still a lot.
Oh, no, this is not imposing. This is what I do. I'd be happy to assist you.
Tor looks at the book, looks at you, looks at the book, looks at you, please.
Yes, Leon, if you can do this for Torok, then that frees me up because I was just his instant go-to. So you are saving me. So now I can go do my own thing.
Oh,
all right,
well.
bye guys.
You're most welcome. All right. So then I start. All right. So please tell me everything that you've learned so far.
He describes the courts and all of that and all the players, but he's like, I'm still nowhere near understanding, of course, why they would do what they did to me.
Yeah,
right.
and given what you learned last time, yeah, was that most likely this is an enchantment of some sort, potentially from Fae. That sort of seemed to be the direction that people were getting. And yes, the break enchantment could be used to potentially break this. So yeah.
Okay. So then, like, I would ask questions, right? Because I don't know. Leon has not been filled in on any of this. So then I'd be starting off asking, like, okay, so that's what you know about the Fae. That's great. Why are you looking into the Fae?
All right. So Tor starts from the beginning he remembers, which isn't much. So Tor knows for certain he failed in protecting a young god. And that young god was killed. And the essence of what's left of the young god is currently housed in his stuffy. He has no memory beyond meeting Mint months ago on the road. And that's why, and at this point, the Fae must somehow be involved with the young god's death, the power in the stuffy. But beyond that, he has no memory. He does not know. Doesn't remember his family. He believes he failed so terribly that they wiped out everything he knew and loved.
Oh my. And so have you tried the Greater Restoration?
They did, and it was like standing in front of a curtain, but nobody could move the curtain.
Oh my. I see. And so the thought is that there's an active enchantment upon you. Now I have cast, Rob, I've cast Detect Magic
Mm-hmm.
and have looked at Torok.
Mm-hmm.
Did I see any evidence of this enchantment?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. So do I think there's any point, now that I am aware that it's there, is there any point in me casting Detect Magic again?
Yes.
Alrighty. Can I make a history check to know if I remember anything about a young god being killed within the last, like, 15, 20 years, I'm thinking?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, goodness. So it begins.
So, yes, in your recollection, remembering back, there hasn't been any young gods that you can think of
Right.
that have been killed. There's definitely sort of these ascending gods. There's been a few of them who sort of were starting to ascend, but then sort of fell out of favor and just sort of went into nothingness, and nothing is much known about what happened with them.
Right.
But no, nothing about a young god that was killed. No, that doesn't ring any bells.
Alrighty.
And I'll just clarify a point from Torok. I'm not sure if you'd said this to be specifically because that's what Torok thought or not. But yes, you had met Mint after you'd started remembering things. You had found yourself on a road in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then it was a little bit after that that you did meet Mint. So yeah.
Okay. Then Leon would definitely ask, like, all of the details you could possibly remember in terms of, like, where you were when your memory started to kick in, the first place that you can remember, and like what direction you had been moving from before, just to try and get a sense of like where exactly you were located when you started to be able to remember things.
And I'll fill that in. So he was in Thurn, which is the sort of the not really a country. It's sort of the name for a larger place where there's a whole bunch of different types of nomadic tribes and people moving around. So it's the name of a region. In Thurn, heading roughly west-ish, and on a road that not sort of, well, there's a lot of main roads in Thurn, but sort of on a defined path that seemed to be going somewhere, and just sort of kept following that, not knowing what else to do, and eventually came upon some bits of civilization, and eventually came upon Mint a little while after that as well.
Okay, my map is taking forever to load, but what do I know about Thurn?
Yes, excellent question.
Should I make a history check to know about Thurn?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe. I really am wondering now how long it's been since I rolled like above a 10 on the dice, because I'm quite certain that last session I did not roll above a 10.
That's fair.
Yay! I know all about Thurn, apparently.
All right, let me bring up my information here. Thurn. Okay. Wow, I don't have a lot. So,
of course, I roll a 25 for something
well,
you
no,
have very little info on.
Well, because there isn't a lot to be known about Thurn. So it's sort of the eastern neighbor of the empire, roughly. So essentially, you've got the main empire, and to the east of that is Thurn. But yeah, there's it's mostly wild lands and bad lands. There isn't a whole lot of like really good arable like farming land, which is why nobody's really rushed in to try and claim this area. That said, there's a lot of um, different peoples that live here. Generally not a whole lot of sort of cohesive kingdoms, but there's villages, there's a lot of nomadic peoples that move around, and like a wide variety of people that move around as well. I'm just going to give you sort of a quick sense for some of the people that are here.
So would a barbarian dragonborn make sense to be from Thurn?
To where am I looking? Wow, is it not on here?
What?
There
On
it
the
is.
map?
Okay.
Yeah, top right.
There it is. So yes, there's humans, there's tabaxi, there's elves, there's goblinoids, even kenku, sort of strange crow-like people. And yes, there's not a lot of sort of dragonborn in a lot of areas, but Thurn is one of the areas where I wouldn't say there's a lot of them, but there are definitely some sort of small clans of dragonborn that have been known to sort of move around through that area as well. Yep.
Okay, and so it would make sense then for the dragonborn that were there to be barbarians. So it does make logical sense that Torok is from Thurn.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I will relay this in case he doesn't realize that's probably where he's from. And then I propose that it would make sense that you are likely from that area for these various reasons. Excellent.
Yeah.
Are there Fae in Thurn?
I mean, yes and no. There's Fae everywhere, sort of in bits and pieces. Most of the if you want to find a lot of Fae in one place, that's the Feywild, which tends to be sort of a parallel layer of existence that can be accessed from almost anywhere. There's not a whole lot of known static portals between this realm and the Feywild. It's sort of they come and go. But yes, and through those portals, Fae come into this world and do Fae things and then go back to the Feywild. So yeah.
Okay, but Thurn is not in any way known to be connected to the Fae.
Not any more than any other place in the world.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
In fact, you sort of rolling enough history today that you would know that the one area of sort of the continent that you're on that would be potentially slightly more connected to the Feywild, if anything, is the nation of Jayu, which is sort of on the other side of Thurn, even further east.
Oh. Okay. And what do I know about that place? Would it make sense for Torok to be from that?
Probably less likely. It's not like there's not Dragonborn there, but they're not known to be from there, and it's a very magic-rich kingdom.
Okay, but then so it could make sense that he could have, in whatever he was doing, could have gone east to that place, run afoul of the Fae, and then wandered back west.
Yep.
Okay, then I will relay all of this info to Torok. My hypothesis about his origin story.
All right.
And then I'll just research the crap out of the Fae.
All right. Yeah, and if you're looking for, like you would probably know the spell that would need to be cast to do the break enchantment. Not a spell that you have access to. It's a higher level at this point, but you could start asking around for, if there's people here that would know it, and if there's anybody that there's a good chance somebody here would know it, and if they might be willing to help out with it. So yeah.
Okay. So does it make sense to continue with research, or does it make more sense to just say, hey, is there someone here who can maybe cast this spell for us since we saved the temple?
It depends what your goals are. If your goal is just to remove the memory block, then you probably want to go looking for the spell. If your goal is to try and find out more about, the Fae and different types of things and potentially more sort of theories around where Tor is from, then you can keep doing research.
Okay. So I'll leave that to Torok and say, all right, so at this point, I think we have two options. We can either research the Fae and see if, without really any information, we can try and discern why they may have done what they've done, or we could see if we could find someone who can cast the spell that would remove your memory blockage, and then you may be able to remember things that would help us figure out what our next steps were.
Yep.
Are there consequences to removing the block?
I mean, in theory, I wouldn't think that they would be instantly aware that it had been removed or anything. But on that note, I will take 10 minutes and cast Detect Magic.
All right. So give me an Arcana roll with
Okay.
your Detect Magic.
All right. I take it it's not based on magical traditions, or what were the things? There were the things that I have
Yes.
special knowledge of. There it is. I take it it's not magical symbols, magical traditions, or conjuration. No, it's not.
No, it is not.
Well, darn.
Yeah. But I will give you advantage on it anyway, because you sort of are very specifically looking for a single thing.
Ooh, maybe I can actually roll decently for once.
I hope so. I'm giving
Me
you a good
too.
chance here.
Ugh.
18 and 20. That's still pretty good. All right.
All right.
So yes, you cast the spell, and you're sort of very like Torak, you might be getting a little subconscious, like Leon is actually sort of, very like looking very closely and sort of investigating and sort of, him manhandling you in little bits of ways to sort of look for things. And what you can find now that you're specifically looking for this, and you can realize why you didn't sense it before, is because the aura is so faint, and it is very much localized pretty much around Tor's head. So there's this sort of faint aura of enchantment, that, yeah, and the sort of the other thing is, it's not faint because it's weak, it's faint because it's strong and being hidden. So it was very specifically meant to be hard to find. But yeah, you are able to sort of very, acutely discern that it's there. But you can see, like, any casual person just casting Detect Magic would never see it.
Okay. And especially when they have this confusing stuffy,
Yeah.
distracting them away from his head.
Yeah.
To be like, what is that thing?
Yeah.
All right. Do I have any reason to suspect that any spell like this would alert the caster if it was broken?
Given your Arcana check, I'm going to say you're about 60% certain that it would not. You can't be like completely sure, because it's not really something you've encountered before, and yeah, you're 60% certain as well that it's such an ongoing effect, and so distant probably from the caster and that sort of thing, that it's most likely something they've sort of cast and forgotten about. So it being
Okay.
removed would not necessarily affect or alert them.
Okay. Well, and I mean, I'm thinking too, like, if you go to that much trouble to hide it, then it makes sense that you just cast it and you're like, nobody's gonna find it, it'll be fine. Like, that seems a bit overkill to then have it alert you if it gets broken. All right, so I will relay this to Torok. You do in fact have an enchantment around your head. I am quite certain that we can remove it without any ill effects to you, in terms of alerting any individuals that it may have been removed or anything. So
Right. Besides remembering, which may have
Yes.
its own consequences.
Yes.
yes, but then you are surrounded by friends, and we are here for you.
And Tor, you see a genuine look of fear in Tor's eyes that say, "You're friends with who I am now. I do not know if you will be friends with who I was then." I do not know if I would be friends with who I was then. but we shall find out, I suppose.
But you have no memory whatsoever of who you were then, correct?
Correct.
So
Which
why?
means I do not know who that person was who failed so badly.
Well, plenty of fantastically decent individuals fail. That is not an indication of anything.
I like your optimism.
I see no reason for you to assume that you are some horrible person when you have nothing whatsoever to base it on.
All right. So while you're sort of thinking about what the next steps are, we'll sort of slip it back. Actually, Mint, were you going to go off and do something specific, or were you just hoping to be freed up so you could go find that mead skin and get some drinking?
So in terms of Mint hasn't really had much free time since Turok came here. He's really been focused on recovering his memory, and so she's been feeling a little bit hijacked, and she's realized that she's never really thought about what she's going to be doing here at the temple and what she would like to research. So one of the things that she really had wanted to do is to kind of look up more along the history of Jindissa and her family, if it's anywhere on the record books in here, because she has a lot of family members who are alive and she knows a lot of the history that's been told to her, but it's always fun to verify, or maybe memory is vague, as she now knows two people who have lost their memory. She just wants to verify that the memory is intact and that nothing has been omitted, say for the sake of protecting her or others. So it's more about getting that full history,
Right.
see what is recorded and what is writ down, as it were, because history is written by the winners. So
Yeah. I will say that I won't make you make a roll, but yeah, sort of given some helps from the monk, you were able to find sort of a book on the sort of the history of Jindissa and the founding of Jindissa, so a lot of the older bits of things. And what you find, there's not necessarily a lot of mention of sort of your specific, like I know some of your tales from your grandmother, that sort of thing. But there's bits. There's bits and pieces of paragraphs that sort of talk about that time and about the things that were going on, and the general sense that you get is what you heard from your grandmother was probably generally true.
always good to know.
Yeah. All right. And slipping back to Talon. So about an hour later. Yes, you suddenly feel a lot more connected with this book. You seem to understand not necessarily what's in it a little better yet. You're sort of flipping through it going, there's a lot of stuff in here and it looks like the things I was trying to study before, never really getting a handle on. But after that hour, you start to realize you know how to use this. And yes, if you essentially just sort of concentrate on using the book, you get the feeling something will happen. Something generally positive.
Right. Okay. Should I continue doing that and try to use the book? Wait for Mira to return?
That's up to you. Mira is probably going to be returning in the next moment or two.
Okay. Then yeah, we'll tell him, I guess, while he's doing this, and he wants to do well and kind of like show Mira that like town can do some things and try and make her proud. So yeah, Talon will, as he's kind of reading through, if he feels like there's a way to use the book, he's going to try and connect with it and try to make that thing happen.
All right. So yeah, you concentrate on it. You just take the book and sort of flip through some pages, and there's this strange and wonderful sort of clarity that comes to you. You start flipping through it and things start to make sense, things that never made sense before. And in sort of just a matter of moments, you're taking a look around and you're taking a look at like other things around you and you're like, you understand things a lot better, and things are sort of coming to you a lot clearer. And about that time, Fenmira will return.
When Fenmira comes in, she's going to see sort of this look of half wonder and half like that, like, I don't know what the look is exactly, but just kind of like, you know, Talon is kind of like looking at things and almost like you see the wheels turn, but you see the wheels turn as opposed to the wheels stop.
Yes, the
With
wheels
the
are
math
actually turning.
equations everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, little boop boop. I did. Yeah. So, yeah, it sounds like this book is amazing.
They usually are.
This book, I understand. I get it. It kind of like flips through. It's like, I mean, there's so much in here, and yet I understand so much better having looked at this book. I can't explain it. It's strange. And then he's going to try to think back to a lesson, a topic, or something that would have come from one of the lessons that Fenmir had kind of given him like a year and a bit ago. You know, nothing specific. It's not like his memory is amazing. It's not like Leon's, but it's, you know, something where it's like remember back, you know, I always struggle with this, and he's going to try to explain at least the concept of something that he struggled with.
Yeah, that's actually very good. The structure of the planar system is basically exactly as you just described it. I'm impressed.
I don't know how I understand that, and I've never understood it until just now. This is I get how this can help me. Thank you.
I'm glad, because I don't.
This is I
Yeah, so from Fenrir's perspective, what you see is a fairly significant change in Talon, and it's again just part of that understanding and that lack of understanding, that and the trying is gone, and it's just this complete sense of, you get the sense that you're now probably talking to an intellectual equal.
Premier's like, eh. But yeah, Talon's gonna go and find some book off the shelf and like look at it and like try to flip to something and be like this right here, and you know, it'll be something like mystic arts of lizards and reptiles, like, and he just kind of flips through a couple things and then kind of regurgitates, and he like, this is saying that this means that lizards and reptiles are very similar creatures, and potions and effects that might affect one would affect the other because of their similarity in their, you know, material makeup. This is incredible. Like, this just makes sense.
And Mira just be smiling the entire time.
Talon just like puts that book away and kind of like, you may not understand how much your help has helped me, but it has helped immensely, and I can only say thank you.
You're welcome.
This I kind of just want to learn, but
you also get the sense that this enlightenment that you're feeling is probably limited. There may not be sort of a huge amount of time that you have that you can spend with this sense of knowing. So yes, if there's something you want to look into, now might be the time.
We do have a library that is quite extensive, as you might have remembered but never really gone to.
Talon definitely chuckles at that. I would actually very much like to try to check out the library. I need to look for something. I may come back and ask for your help, but I want to see if I can do this on my own.
Okay.
All right.
And Talon kind of picks up the book and just like kind of almost clutches it in a like, wow, kind of like, this is means so much to him. And he's like, thank you. And he goes off.
Right. So yes, you will arrive at the sort of main library level in time to hear Leon and Torak in a discussion about whether or not this, they want to have the spell cast or continue doing more research. Yeah.
Talon's going to be like oddly beaming, especially given the demeanor you saw him like the night before and even in the morning. It looks oddly perky. So yeah, Talon will kind of come over and say, "Hello, how are things going?"
Tarak's looking at him, trying to remember. Did you get into the mead?
The mead? Oh no, I do not imbibe in such alcoholic liquids. No, I read a book, and the book was amazing, and I'd like to read more books.
So, is Detect Magic still active?
Yep.
Okay.
For fun, we'll say it is. Yep.
And I take it, I notice right away that Talon is using big words.
Yep.
He normally wouldn't.
Yep.
I'm definitely peering at him with Detect Magic.
Yep. It's probably some weird mix of like enchantment and transmutation that seems to be affecting him, and it seems to be definitely sort of centered and or coming from that book.
Okay, which is the book that I saw the Archmage give him.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep, and I'm still holding. I haven't put it away. So.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. What are you researching? What are you doing?
We're looking at whether or not I have an enchantment on me to take away my memory, and we're trying to decide whether or not to ask someone to try to break it or keep researching why the Fae would do it in the first place.
The Fae? You mentioned yesterday that you had been affected by a god, or that you were and somehow crossed a god, or
A young god died in my care, is what I believe happened.
oh my dear. And you are looking through the books to find out which god, or what do you?
Well, my understanding is the Fae did this to me, so I was trying to figure out anything I could with the Fae. Leon was kind enough to help, and with Leon's help, we're deciding whether or not to continue the research or see if someone in the monastery can cast the spell required to clear my head. Literally.
You mentioned the spell?
Break enchantment.
All right. Talon, you would sort of instantly make a connection. That doesn't usually happen for you. Yeah, this is a spell, like, I was just talking to Finmira, and I'm pretty sure she has that spell, and I think I've seen her, like, use that before.
Interesting. Yes. I believe it could work. And actually, if you would like to have that spell done on you, I actually know someone who could probably assist with that. I was actually just speaking with her. She is probably available if you'd like.
I would be most grateful if you could do the introduction. And while like to have it cast is perhaps the wrong turn of phrase, it is probably necessary.
All right.
And what have you come to the library for, Talon?
I came. It kind of like doesn't really show it, but kind of like holds it. Like I came to read this book, and I understand so much now.
Can we see the cover? Because both of us understand Draconic.
You can't see it at the moment because the cover is sort of what's sort of more
Okay.
in the chest. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah. Well, if you like, I can introduce you to Fenmir. If she's actually just on the next level, I can. I see I did that. I can bring you to her if you like.
Yes. And if you would like any assistance in doing the research, I'd be happy to assist you as well.
All right. All right. So
I would like that very much.
assuming you go back up, Fenmir is still in the classroom. It's still empty.
Okay.
That was
little
quick.
knock on the yes, I haven't actually gotten to the research I was looking to do. However, one of my friends whom I met in Silver Lake in my time away actually has a bit of a memory situation, which I think you might be able to help with if you would be willing.
Yes.
He can probably explain better than I, but it sounds like a Fae may have removed some of his memory, and he now needs to retrieve those memories.
I am Torok. My memories don't go back very far, but my understanding from my past is I failed. At this point, Tor's just telling the story over and over again. Failed a young god, was somehow had his memories and his entire past wiped out by what seems to be the Fae. He has no memories of that incident or his past or anything else. But he does have, and he shows the stuffy this, which is a very powerful magical item, which he believes is the spirit of that young god that he failed.
Well, how about you and the young god come inside, and we will see what we can do. What's my deception like? Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to hold that in at all. As soon as you mention memory, like eyes go wide, ears perk up. Sort of like, oh yeah, I'm being introduced to someone. Oh, okay, we're doing this now. Excellent.
Can we tell anything about the classroom? Like what kind of class this is?
So the classroom itself is fairly generic. There's only 2 classrooms in the temple grounds, so they're sort of remade into whatever type of class they need to be. But probably what this had been set up for was some research into relics and how to deal with them, that sort of thing. So.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. For additional information, I should say that it actually does not seem so much that Torok's memory has been removed as it has been suppressed, and there is a very, very subtle enchantment hidden around his head, which is blocking the memory.
Okay, well that does make things a little bit easier. Young Mr. Dragonborn, would you please take a seat here? You are rather large, and your head is quite high off the ground.
Torok sits down.
Okay.
And if it would be easier, he looks at the height of the chair and the height of you, and either sits on the floor if it actually makes more sense, or the chair, whichever.
No, there would be a step stool. Fenrir would have, this is the thing. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we can go about this. I think when she takes out a small book and puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "Do you trust me?"
Talon does, so I will.
Okay. I'm going to use Channel Divinity.
Yep.
Access memory. So we're going to start here.
Yep.
What does the book look like?
It's like a small book. You might recognize the logo. The symbol on the front is for the Archmage. So it's a tiny knowledge Bible.
Cool.
Okay, so Rob, I'm not sure if what we actually figured out for how this is going to work.
Okay.
And for the record, Leona's right there, right beside Torok, like the supportive friend who's gone with the person to the doctor, who's right there and will not be moved. Yeah. That is what Leona's doing.
Yeah.
Completely staying out of the way, but but will not be removed from Torok's side.
And Tor notices and nods. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I'll be saying sort of as this is going on exactly what's happening. It's so in the work that I've done with the gods of knowledge, we've learned a way to access certain memories. It can only be done very limited number of times. It's not always completely successful. There has so far been no severe negative consequences, but this might be a good first step. So it is something we can try and tap into the divine to see if we can gain a little bit more information
Right.
to move forward.
So yep, it requires an insight check from you.
All right.
Oh.
Unnatural 20 again.
Unnatural 20 is good. Okay, so, okay, I need to get a nice little moment here that I can give you. So the first thing that you get is usually when you're working with someone around this, they may have lost sort of a little bit of time and you're trying to recover, maybe a specific bit of memory or a specific sort of smaller time chunk. You definitely get a sense that there's a lot that has been suppressed here. And also just with how your sort of the spell works and sort of the resistance that you're feeling, you definitely get the sense that there's some strong force that is keeping Torok from remembering these things. But you do access a memory. And yeah, let's use that one. Okay, so the memory is of Torok fighting what sort of looks like a cross between like an ogre and an elf. Like it's very like they got the elven features and sort of very fey-like, but is like this very large giant sort of fey. And that fey is wielding an axe, a very nice looking axe. And Torok is fighting with a hammer. They're battling each other. It is you definitely get the sense, like since you're sort of really only remembering from Torok's perspective, that there's a battle going on around, but there's very much other fighting, but you're focused on this one sort of giant fey that's in front of you, and the killing stroke is struck by Torok, who takes this fey down. You get the sense that that is sort of a turning point in the battle, that whoever was the enemy starting to flee, and Torok sort of bends down and sort of picks up the axe that the other was wielding and sort of holds it up with this roar of victory, and sort of you can hear this cheer around as well as sort of the tides turn and the enemy seems to be in flight.
Does Torok have either the axe or the hammer now?
He has both.
Okay. Does Torok know that memory, or is this something that only I...
No, this is what you access.
So, okay.
Yeah. Torok, what you sense is that there's something going on, and you maybe get like flashes of sort of light and dark and action, but it's very much sort of happening sort of within and around you, and you're not quite able to see this.
So, good news, bad news. The good news is I saw a memory of yours fighting something very large, which is where you acquired that axe on your back. So in terms of research, that is quite good. Bad news, there is a lot more that appears to be locked away. Quite a bit more than I could access through this method. So I would like to try something else. And I'm going to cast Dispel Good and Evil.
Yep.
Or Evil and Good.
All right.
And then use the Break Enchantment.
Yep.
And again, before doing that, ask again, do you trust me?
I continue to. But there's obvious a bit of fear in Tor's eyes, but it's at this point, I think he's committed to it.
Okay. I give a look to Leona and Talon just to sort of like be ready.
Yep.
All right. So.
And then
one thing before you do this.
I regret not being there, guys.
I feel that it would be best for you to be aware of the fact that Torok, as a barbarian, can fly into a rage. And this is an unusual rage that generally has magical effects, which has ranged from spirits flying out from him and exploding, or teleporting short distances, or draining the life energy from all of the people around him to feed his own energy.
You could have told me this slightly earlier.
I'm telling you before you cast the spell.
We do have additional clerics, but I also do happen to have banishment prepared, so we would have a bit of time should things go terribly wrong to be ready. I was actually quite prepared to deal with a whole bunch of students learning how to deal with cursed objects today, so Cursed Barbarian, not much different.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So yes, you see the materials ready, holy water, powdered silver, iron, sort of laying them out. You sort of create a bit of a circle around Torok and cast the spell. And you've used this spell before, and even this particular effect, almost every other time it's happened almost instantly. The effect happens, the enchantment has been removed. This one feels a little different. And what you feel is this sort of struggle and tension, and it's almost sort of trying to draw more from you. So, Fenmira, what I need is a caster level check. So you roll a d20, add your level to it, and let me know what you get.
24.
Okay, very good. Torok, I need you to give me an odds or evens roll.
Oh my.
Oh.
Odds, okay. And now I need you to give me a wisdom check, a wisdom save. 9. Okay. So, Fenmira, what you get the sense is that you were successful in casting the spell, in the effect happening. Torok, what you get is this flood of this flood of images that don't really make much sense, and there's sort of too much, and it's all coming back to you, and it's you just actually for the sake of fun in the game, what everyone else sees is Torok just sort of falls over like a brick, completely passed out.
Can we catch
That's
him?
what I was looking at you to prevent.
Yeah, can we catch him?
Sure. What are you going to try and catch him? Like, are you going to physically catch him? He's quite big and heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Talon would also try.
Talon's there. All right. Yeah.
I'm like the strongest one in the group, remember?
True. Sure. Give me an athletics check.
Is Talon proficient in athletics?
In athletics?
Yeah.
I'll tell you in a second.
Now I regret not being there for this reason. I'd like to watch this.
Athletics. Yes. Although yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So one of you can give it to me with advantage, given that you are both attempting to catch.
Hey, Talon, how about you make that roll with advantage since you have plus something and I don't?
Wait, plus 3. All right.
All right.
That's 3 more than I got.
See if I do this right.
Nice. Yep. All right. So yeah, you catch Torok before he hits the ground, and you sort of lower him down gently. But his eyes, like they're open and they are like wide open, but they are like completely unseeing, completely glazed over, and just this sort of gaping mouth. It's definitely, you get a sense of someone being overwhelmed.
Seems to be stuck in his own head.
All right. Well, I'm gonna sit cross-legged and I'm gonna cradle his head in my lap and I'm going to like basically just kind of murmur to him comfortingly in Draconic, just so that once he does snap out of it, he's feeling okay.
All right. Torak, give me another wisdom save. Okay. So it takes a minute or two, but Torak sort of eventually snaps out of it. So Torak, what you remember, again, there was the flood of sort of these images, and you're not even sure if they're memories. It almost seems like it's like you're watching moving pictures of someone else's life, that they don't make sense, and there's too much, and even at this point, like it completely overwhelmed you, and you were seeing all of these things at once. Essentially, imagine sort of seeing your entire life within the span of a couple of seconds. But it still hasn't really sunk in. It still hasn't really made sense to you. And even as you wake up, you're sort of blinking, and sort of people around you. You realize you've fallen down. You know that the memories are there and accessible, but you've apparently put your own block in place, and you don't want to remember them at this point. Finmira, I'm going to give me another insight check. Oh,
27.
Wow, yeah. So you get, when you don't get the sense, while you were in there, while you were dealing with this, while you had cast that spell, this spell did not unlock everything. You definitely got a distinct sense of two different enchantments.
Well, that's interesting. We might need to do that again.
Really?
Tor's just like, I'm not sure what to do with what happened the first time.
Not today, Torak. It's all right.
Well, no, I can't cast that again today, so that would have to be till tomorrow.
Let's get you back to the let's get you back to the room. You can have a lie down.
That might be best. That was disturbing and interesting and disturbing.
I'm curious, actually, if Finmira would have noticed anything about Leon, about like the earrings or anything. Rob.
Oh, very possibly. Give me a perception check.
Passive perception of 19.
Right. Yes. Never mind.
Passive investigation of 23.
Yeah,
Insight of 22.
You would notice when we're speaking with Leon, the earrings that she wears, which denote a specific tradition of magic and sort of levels achieved in that tradition of magic. It's known as the Sarida tradition, and she has currently achieved the Mutawasti level in that tradition. So,
which basically means I can cast 3rd level spells.
Yeah. So that is, you're definitely dealing with a spellcaster of yes, a little bit of note here. And specifically, you would know that the Sarida tradition is pretty much only really practiced in Dell. There's a few places outside that do it, but that's sort of the primary people who practice that. And that's a Southern Kingdom, currently at war with the Moorish Empire. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I can do, I think, for you, Dragonborn, sir, for now. I would suggest a nice coffee. That will probably do you the most good right now.
Thank you.
Torok, would you like me to escort you back to the room?
Yes, I think I would.
All right. Fenmira, if I may return once I have seen to Torok, I have some questions.
Of
That
course.
would be all right?
Of course.
Excellent.
And I think since we're sort of just at about a good time now, why don't we do that when we get back from our break? So we'll take a quick 5-minute break, just let people run to the bathroom, and then we'll be back and we'll see what discussion comes up with then.
Yay.
Hello and welcome back to the next level. We will jump right back into things, and also Rob has joined us again. He's feeling a little better, so we will work his stuff in as well. So
I'll try not to cough on it.
Torok, you are laid sort of to rest and have a bit of a nap back in the room. Leon returns to Fenmira, and yes, you wanted to have a quick discussion.
Yes. So when I return, then I pull out a. Where is it? Hold on. What did I call it? A floating rectangular prism. That when I pull it out, I can make it orbit me. And I ask, have you seen something like this? I have tried to research it. I spoke to another arcane scholar, and he was not able to really tell me anything about it. I am able to use it as an arcane focus.
That's a good question, Rob. Have I seen anything like this?
Give me an Arcana check.
19.
All right. So, you think, given the research that you have done and some of the relics that you have looked at, that this is a sort of a distant cousin to an Ayun stone. It is called a Sahali stone.
Okay.
And generally, they were relics of a sort of a bygone era. I think I've got a sheet pulled up here. Oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong page. One moment. I have to scroll down here. Okay, so yes, they are a relic of the Age of Ascendance, which was sort of the previous age before the one you're in now, which did last for a significant amount of time, and ended with the Mage War. There was significantly more magic and sort of magic potential in these lands, but the Mage War sort of drained a lot of that away. And these Sahali stones were used by mages. They usually possessed rather significant arcane powers. So sort of like Ayun stones, they would be sort of consistent effects that somebody would have. They could usually cast spells into them and sort of store them for later. They sort of worked in many different functions. However, this one, like pretty much any that have been found in this era, is considered essentially inert. It is dead. So it is still sort of, it floats sort of on its own. If you just sort of stick it in the air, it'll just stay there. It has essentially like it ignores gravity. And it can be used as a spell focus still, but the other magical effects that you sort of heard about that might go into these no longer affect it. If it did, it would probably be a significantly brighter color. It wouldn't be sort of the slate gray that it is. It would probably be a bright green or gold or red or something like that if the magic was still a part of it.
Okay, so I pass that information on. Sort of go to the desk and say it's sort of like one of these, and I take out one that looks very similar, but it's just completely gray at this point.
Yeah, it's lost. It just doesn't.
It's a history teaching prop at this point.
Ah.
Yeah, so it is rather impressive that you've found one that still has even this much power, and that it was just not accounted for.
Oh, well. It was found within a bag of holding within the den of a horrible two-headed dog of disgustingness.
I'm not familiar with the dog of disgustingness. Valo must not have updated his guide that recently.
Well, and it was in the Haramadin Desert.
That's the important part. And yes, you would know that the Haramadin Desert was the area. It used to be not a desert. One of the effects of the Mage War was to completely wipe out whatever was here. There used to be a magical kingdom there. It is gone. It is now a desert.
Yeah, that information would just be talking about it as well.
Yeah.
Probably more information than you'd want to know.
Oh, no. It would not be.
Yeah, so just sort of rambling about everything. This character's flaw is that they can't really keep any secrets. So basically, as soon as something comes to their mind, just starts talking and doesn't really stop.
This is going to be a short conversation. I have a feeling this might not be a short conversation anymore. Do I get that sense that that Fenmira just like spews information at the drop of a hat?
Don't even need to roll an insight check. Yeah.
Yeah, you get the impression like right away. Like this is someone who is used to. We're talking about this topic, and I'm here to teach about this topic, and here's all these things about this topic.
Okay, then I think we can safely assume that that Leon spends the next hour, if not two, here just basically like plumbing Fenmira for information. Because my character remembers everything she's heard. So she will just collect as much info as possible.
Yes.
To then later digest and make notes at her leisure in the 4 hours every day that she waits for her companions to finish their sleeping.
Yes. Character that can't stop talking mixed with the character that remembers everything. Yeah.
Yep. Who's like obsessed with arcane knowledge, who's learning from an arcane scholar. Yep. Then definitely would like ask about thoughts on so the Shadow Forest has we believe that it now has a connection with the Shadowfell for these reasons, and goes through like all of the information that we have gained so far about the Shadow Forest. And I'm looking for information on a ritual that might be able to be used for returning these individuals from their mutated state, because I don't want to go and kill these poor unfortunate individuals when we can potentially save them. What are your thoughts on this?
Give me an intelligence check. So a straight intelligence roll. Oh, all right.
Bonus was good and saved me that time.
Yep.
That's all right. I feel your pain.
So you have one of those rare moments where you're like, yes, I know something about this. There's a book. There's a book.
There's a book, but I haven't seen it or heard it in the past month, so that's slipping my mind right now.
Yep.
I see. Hey, now you were talking about intellectual equals and stuff before. Leon is at least your intellectual equal.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, just like.
So what I'll do for that is essentially, if interested, then Fenmira can sort of point you at an area of the library
Yep.
And then you could sort of try and do your own investigation from there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing that.
Okay.
And in terms of other items, I don't think there's really other items or anything like that. Yeah, so probably just plumb as much information as I can out of Finmira, and then go rush to help Talon
Yes.
with his research, feeling slightly guilty, but only slightly.
Yeah, probably by the time you get there, Talon's like, I really felt like I wanted to read this book, but I can't quite remember why now.
No. Yes.
Yeah. So the effect would have worn off on Talon. Was there anything while the effect was on that Talon was trying to do?
Yeah, so while Talon had this surge of brilliance or understanding, whatever, yeah, Talon's going to the library. He's going to look up books, some books about the Shadow Weaver, looking for books of maybe gods that associate themselves with the Shadow Weaver, gods who have impersonated the Shadow Weaver, if anything. He's going to look up guides or journals of followers of the Shadow Weaver, with the idea that there could be other people who were falsely believing it was a Shadow Weaver, and look for sort of common traces or similarities with his experiences.
Yeah.
Or maybe they weren't, and therefore maybe there could be some clues in there. And he probably won't get any further than that before he kind of collects the books, and he's just like, how did, because they kind of make sense, but why he was looking for those books were like, he's kind of lost.
Yep. You get like all these materials together. You're like, yes, I'll need this, and I'll need this, and I'll need this, and you've got this like small, pile of books, and you're like, okay, time to dig in. And you take one off, and you look at it, and you're like, you just sort of feel the clarity sort of fade, and the world sort of darken just a little bit, and you're like, I know I wanted to read this book, and I think I can kind of remember why, but now it seems like it's going to be a lot harder.
So he'll try to read, and depending on how long before Leon gets there, he might start getting real sleepy.
Yep. So for fun, give me an investigation check with your usual intelligence modifier.
Dun, dun, dun.
Roll a natural 20.
That would be
Possible.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
6.
Oh.
Okay, so yep, you definitely have that moment of like, I'm just gonna try and start reading through this and
Back to school days of I finished the paragraph and I'm like, I gotta read that again. I did not get that.
Where are the pictures in this book?
Exactly.
All right. Jacob, we've gone through a good chunk of the morning. I'm going to assume that you were still working on sort of meditation and sort of that area of research. Did you want to focus on that, or would you want to focus on something else?
The meditation. If there wasn't too much going on, this was kind of a chill day, then I think Jacob would spend starting the day meditating and then looking for others that could help him get better at it.
Yep. So yeah, you start your meditation. Give me a wisdom check. All right. So yeah, you have maybe it's the excitement of Leon's revelation the night before. Maybe you didn't sleep too well. You're not quite sure, but yeah, you're not quite able to get into that sort of Zen-like state of the peaceful blank mind to start your meditation. Even sort of trying some of the stuff that you've been helped with the day before, and you go on and look for others who can help. You spy the woman who you knew was Talon's instructor in sort of the monk arts, and think, well, she's maybe a good person to try. So you could go speak to her. You remember her name is Leiko.
Okay, so I go searching for her.
Yep.
They found.
Yep.
Leiko. I'm trying to like meditate and stuff. It's I'm not very good at it. In fact, I'm pretty bad. I was thinking about it this morning and trying to meditate, and when I woke up, I had built a beautiful clock, but yeah, the meditation didn't come so easy. My memories are a little foggy, so I'm trying to just kind of clear my mind and help with that.
Yes. Oh, there it is right on top. Okay. Yeah, she sort of takes a moment and seems to sort of study you a little bit. It's like, you're someone with a very active mind, aren't you?
And as she says that, I've pulled out this little thing that's
Yeah.
giving off light. Pardon?
Yes, you're always working on things. You use your hands, but you also use your mind. You're creating. And sort of something sort of hits in the back of her head, and you're like, oh, are you an artificer?
No, definitely not. I am a sorcerer.
It's like, I'm not with the Empire. I don't care one way or the other if you are.
I want to roll an insight check.
Yep. Give me an insight check.
Oh, that's very interesting that you don't care about artificers, because I don't care either. That's really funny.
Yeah, so couple things. So just from insight, you definitely get the sense that she is being sort of completely genuine, that she is not trying to capture artificers. Also, just sort of clicking in some things from what you know about her kind, her race. The Genasi tend to come from a very specific area of the world. It's actually relatively rare to see them outside of that area, and it has nothing to do with the Empire. So yeah, they wouldn't necessarily care one way or the other about artificers. She's not from the Empire. She probably is telling the truth about not particularly being concerned one way or the other.
And even when my brain says that to me, you've convinced me. I am an artificer, and I start just looking around all around me, waiting for the ambush to come.
And she
Every once in a while, I jump backwards.
Yeah, looks around with you and it's like, I take it you have been hunted for your gifts.
Once, and that was enough.
I can understand. And you definitely get a sense from her, given sort of your insight check, that she has been, she understands a certain amount of oppression, and sort of being used for her gifts and that sort of thing. So it's like, anyway, what you are is less important, but the fact that you have this very active mind, I think maybe what your trouble might be with meditation is simply channeling those active thoughts as opposed to trying to avoid them. I have worked with others, in fact, and she sort of gives this big sigh, like, I have worked with many here who have very active minds. There are wizards who come to us and want to learn meditation. And I'm like, yes, of course. I have learned a technique that might be very useful for you.
I'm all ears.
All right. And she sort of, sits you down, and it's like, get in a comfortable pose, and she gets this weird, cross-legged, pose, like, but just whatever's comfortable for you, and sit. And I want you to think about, think about one of your little things, your little gizmos there that you were just creating, but focus on it. Focus on it very intently.
Okay, I'm going to bring up one, and I just see all the gear moving and stuff.
And focus on those gears. Notice the interaction of them. Notice how they all move, and immerse yourself in that minutia.
Intently stare. I see all the little tiny gears.
And put all other thoughts aside. Just this one thing. Focus on that. Can you do that?
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, she sort of walks you through this process of focusing on this thing that is sort of important to you, and sort of that you understand, to a point where you actually have this moment of um, clarity and sort of silence and peace that comes with sort of having gotten rid of all the other thoughts that are around this. And yeah, you actually sort of have this sort of moment of enlightenment and a bit of a shock, and it sort of goes away as soon as you have it, because often that happens when you have these sort of emotional reactions to these sorts of things. But you think you understand the basics of how this works now, which means that when you want to meditate now, you can roll an intelligence check instead of wisdom, and you have advantage.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Will be useful and better than my wisdom.
Yep. Yeah. So yes, and she sort of leaves you there to practice this, and she's like, I'm very glad you sought me out. I'm very glad I could help you. And sort of just even as she's getting up and sort of walks away and sort of turns back, it's like, you're a friend of Talon's, are you not?
We've traveled together, yes.
If it's not too much to ask, keep an eye on them for me if you can. I feel like they've had some troubles, and they were one of my most apt pupils, and I hope that well, I wish for the best for them in this world.
Look at her, and I will try my best. Not sure I'll be able to do enough that they would want to name a horse after me, but I will try my best.
She has this weird, okay, I don't know what that means, but you know what that means, and that's what's important. Yep. So if you want to try another set of meditation with the new rules, you can give that a shot.
Wait, no. The old-fashioned way. That's 1, 2, 18.
Okay, 18. So yeah, you sort of, you give it a shot, you sort of concentrate, you get into this moment of sort of peace where sort of things in the world sort of fades away. And you I'm assuming it's on sort of redo and sort of your thoughts around that.
I'm going to assume that this bonus is only for that specifically.
Yeah, yeah. So you focus on her, on the voice that you've heard, on sort of the images of her as a little girl and sort of a young woman that you've seen, and sort of so what is your specific purpose in this?
I'm seeing. I kind of have a suspicion if she came to me when she was dead, can I talk with her? So I'm going to try to communicate with her.
Okay. So what do you say? You've gotten into the state. Do you feel like you're in the right spot? What would you like to say?
I'm going to say, redo, I believe.
All right. In the darkness, there's this sort of further separation, and you can almost see yourself as sort of a floating aura. And then there's this little spark in the distance that sort of slowly gets larger, and you see her in the darkness with you. And she sort of has this wide-eyed look on her face. She's sort of the young woman, again, about matching the current age you are now. And it's like, Jacob, have you finally remembered?
Bits and pieces. I've seen quite a lot, and how you're with me my whole life, but there's still a lot of gaps there.
Okay, I am here, and I am waiting. And actually, give me an insight check. All right, not bad. So she is excited. That is sort of, you can tell it without an insight check. She is excited. She is a little sort of surprised, and the way she's even sort of looking around, and even just sort of the darkness that's around you, you get the sense that she's been somewhere else. You're not quite sure, but yeah, she is extremely excited to see you. extremely excited just to seem to sort of be around anywhere. And it's like I need you to believe in me. I know you haven't remembered anything yet, and I'm sorry about that. That was my fault. Um, but I need you to believe specifically in me.
What do you mean it was your fault?
Oh, it was an accident. I didn't mean to. I was trying to, and at that point, she seems to get sucked back into sort of the point in the darkness that um, she came from, and sort of your meditation sort of falters and fades away at that point. But you definitely get the sense that you should be able to continue to perhaps have conversations with her in this way. But yeah, you definitely got the sense that she was trying to tell you something about your memory and how it happened, and that it was her fault.
I come to, and I'm probably a little bit exhausted from the effort doing that for the first time. Yeah, I probably need a bit of a lie down at the moment.
You find Turok already up in the room.
I walk in, just kind of hit the bunk. I'm like, memories are exhausting.
And you feel a bottle hit the bed beside you, a flask, and Torok's like, "Yep."
Nice. All right. Mint, was there anything else you were working on?
Apart from that, I know that I wanted to kind of look into the history of what might have sparked the war in the first place. Like, obviously, like the Moorish Empire wants to expand, but perhaps it started out in one of a couple of ways. So I wanted to see what in the history books here might kind of record what their first kind of goal was that kind of started this preamble, and like we kind of know in recent years and decades how it got to this point.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, it's good to know what history has recorded of its beginnings, what other countries or nations, cities even thought of the Moorish Empire when it kind of started making this power grab.
All right. Give me a research or an investigation check.
Investigation. Oh, I got a +2. First roll of the night is high.
Yay! All right. So yeah, that's good enough. What you find is a book on sort of the histories, and this is sort of a significantly long time ago. So need to quite figure out exactly what the timeline's on here. Okay, so essentially what you find is a book on the early society in the Age of Restoration, which is the Age of Restoration is the current age that you're in. It's the age that followed the Age of Ascendance, which ended in the Mage War. And a lot of societies needed to essentially rebuild almost from scratch after the Mage War, hence restoration and that sort of thing. And what you come across is a sort of a series of kings and the beginnings of what it formed as sort of the Moorish Empire. And what happened was King Kurald, so Kurald, a human, from a pretty much a relatively insignificant like city-state of Mornay, made an alliance with the Golgath in the mountains to the south of them, in the Haunter Mountains, to try and sort of bolster the strength of his kingdom, to try and he was sort of attacked by all sides, and even the Golgath were sort of attacking down from the mountains. And he thought, maybe I'll make an alliance with somebody, and these guys seem like sort of the strongest group. So he married his daughter to one of the Golgath's sons, and sort of brought sort of these clans together. And through the next sort of series of families, more clans were brought in from the Golgath side, and sort of humans came on. And this was sort of the start of the empire, was this sort of mixing of the human and Golgath bloodlines. And that's what sort of solidified Mornay as a power in that region. Although it did still take another 100 and some odd years before they really started to expand. So the period of expansion was known as the Baltarian period in Mornish history. And I can send you all the names and information on this if you want to. But essentially,
Sure.
at that point in history, the kings, you got sort of a strong line of kings that decided they were going to expand their territory, and very quickly began to do so. So this was still, how many years ago? About 200 years ago that this started. And it sort of very quickly started with, conquering a couple neighboring sort of city-states, and then sort of growing out from there over the next sort of hundreds of years. And it very much it wasn't even initially as we want to rule the world sort of thing. It was we've built up a significant power base, and these kings were sort of strong enough and strong enough of sort of mind and will that we want to bring others into our fold, and just sort of grow our powerful kingdom and make it sort of something to be known. And sort of over time that got a little distorted to be, we are going to take over the known world sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's always somebody who has to try and take over everything.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. Leon, you were going to go check on Talon, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come across Talon, he's probably sitting down in some kind of a workstation. He's got a couple of books still stacked, a bunch of them kind of like open, but he's just like, he doesn't have hair, but if he's pulling it, he's just like trying to make sense of what the common thread is and how these things all fit together. Is that kind of look of that, like, just feel, he looks lost.
This is the usual stage you're used to seeing Talon in.
Yes.
Then Leon comes back and it's just like, I am so sorry that I have taken so long to return. Just Finmira is a font of information, and I just had to drink deeply from that font of information. I hope you will understand. I am here, and I will assist you in any way that I can. What is it that you are researching?
Talon kind of just looks, and Finmira is good. She's great. I'm looking for the Shadow Weaver, but not the Shadow Weaver. I'm looking for someone impersonating the Shadow Weaver.
I see.
And I think the answer, or something that could help, is somewhere maybe in one of these books.
All right. Leon pulls up a chair, sits down beside Talon, moves in pretty closely, and is like, is this to do with the manipulation that you were talking about?
Talon doesn't really try to hide it, and he's just nods and yes.
So you think it was someone who was impersonating the Shadow Weaver?
The Archmage told me so.
Interesting.
Yes.
So May I ask you questions?
He just kind of has a bit of a sigh. He's like, yes.
All right. I know that there are other elves around, but would it make you feel better if we switched to Elvish, or would you prefer to stay in the common tongue? Which is your preference?
Common is fine.
All right. So Leon always keeps her voice low so that it's like just between the two of us so that nobody else is going to overhear or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you've had the impression that you've been manipulated, or have you learned that you were being manipulated by someone who was appearing to be the Shadow Weaver? So you thought that you were working for the Shadow Weaver for a time?
So just before we go too far in this, I'm trying to remember in player game how much Leon knows. Because I know that we obviously heard the conversation, but Talon hasn't shared all of it. So I'm trying to remember what might have been said and what.
Oh no. And I'm using the information because I specifically, when the Archmage went over to speak to you,
of course,
I was like, Leon puts herself over where she can overhear this conversation.
Yeah.
Because ever since we arrived
So
at the Shadow Forest, and like you had a Pegasus show up, you're not very smart, and then like when we first arrived at the temple, somebody was like, hey, did you find what you were looking for? And you were like, nope. So Leon has been like, what is going on with Talon? And has been doing everything she can to be close, to be like, what is going on with Talon? Let me listen. So yeah, I'm specifically using things that I know that my character has overheard in her attempts to find out what's going on with Talon.
Cool. No, it's awesome. So to remember the exact question, it was that you asked if I thought that I was being influenced by the shadow. What was the exact wording of your question?
I believe it was, so you thought at one point that you were working for the Shadow Weaver.
And also in a very quiet voice, Talon's like, yes.
And this was when we were going into the Shadow Forest.
Yes.
Which, admittedly, at that point, you didn't really know the Shadow Forest was controlled by the Shadow Weaver, but.
And Talon's not necessarily smart enough to realize Shadow Weaver, Shadow Forest. There's a word that sounds very similar between those two.
and Leon for a second thinks about being, and you didn't see that connection, and then remembers, yes, you did not see money as a resource. So the obvious connections, Talon does not make them. And it's like, all right. And you've been looking for something. When we arrived at the monastery, someone asked you if you'd found what you were looking for, leading me to presume that you had left the monastery looking for something. Is that related to this?
Yes, I have been looking for information on how to stop the Shadow Weaver, or how to separate myself from the Shadow Weaver.
Interesting. But it turns out that it is not the Shadow Weaver who has been manipulating you, even though we are dealing with the Shadow Weaver's henchmen. Interesting. Oh well, show me the books that you've been looking at, and let's see what we can find out.
Yes, Talon, of course, is looking at you, and you're like, explicitly, you're just like, talking out loud, and he's just, huh? But yeah. So, I picked up books on the Shadow Weaver, and books about people following the Shadow Weaver. I don't understand how they're going to help me find someone who isn't the Shadow Weaver. And I've got a couple other books as well. And at a moment, I thought I had an idea, and I don't know how these are going to help.
All right, so I see if I can figure out what all these books, how they would add together, and what he may have been looking for.
So the impression you get is that what he was looking for were situations and people that were sort of in a similar sort of state of thinking that they were being that they were following either the Shadow Weaver or a god, only to find out that was not the case and it was somebody else? And is there sort of a common thread in who that might be?
Okay. So I will do the research that Talon was planning to do.
Okay.
Because you're so smart.
So give me a investigation check.
Do I get any kind of a bonus because he had it like
Because
already
he
put
started
together?
for you? Sure. I'll give you advantage on the roll.
Hooray! I'm always rolling crappy, so yes.
Oh,
Nice.
there we go. Okay. So, what you find is a couple of things that you can, and what you start to see, sort of looking and start piecing things together, is sort of a common narrative and a thread that the Shadow Weaver is known for being a god of trickery and shadows, of lies, and that sort of thing. But there are other gods who are sort of known for that as well. So the three sort of big ones that sort of are known for potentially being trickery and sort of manipulating people in strange ways are the Shadow Weaver, the Evernight, which is one of the ancient gods of trickery. And the last one is the Whisperer, who's like the Shadow Weaver, is just an already ascended god. So they're sort of the mid-level of gods.
Okay.
And you you've narrowed it down to these three as being sort of, these are ones that like to sort of potentially manipulate people and trick them in various different ways. You can eliminate the Shadow Weaver because you've been told they're not the ones, so it's somebody who's trying to pass them off as being a tricky person manipulating somebody. And you actually fairly quickly after that, sort of looking through the various researches and sort of comparing things, the Evernight, the ancient god, she's a god of trickery, but she's also, it's more in the sense of like mischief and fey and that sort of thing. It tends not to be so much controlling people to do various misdeeds and that sort of thing. It's a little lighter, a little more fun. So the one that seems the most likely, and you even sort of, as you're going through this and sort of narrowing it down to potentially being the Whisperer, you realize that the Whisperer, just in their name, and another name for them is the Vicious Voice, is very much one who likes to work behind the scenes, likes to not necessarily take a lot of credit for their work. They like to have other people be sort of accused of things that they've sort of led that person to do, and very possibly could be the one that has been affecting Talon.
There you go.
And about the time that you're sort of doing this and starting to explain it to Talon, the abbot finds you two in this corner of the library and sort of rushes up and sort of sees you but directed at Talon. It's like, I have done some research and I think I might know who it is who has been affecting you.
Might that be the Whisperer?
Yes. How did what?
Talon's trying to explain, and he's like, so Leon has been helping. I found books to try and understand who it might be, and Leon was just trying to explain to me that it might be this Whisperer god.
And that seems very likely, given what I have found in the research that I did as well. And given that, I know how we can identify any others who may have been affected.
Oh, that is good. That is great. How can I help?
We will need a little bit from you. but your cloak is different. Where did you get it?
It was, and Town starts to have that realization face of like, it was a gift from the Shadow Weaver, or not the Shadow Weaver. I heard a voice, and one day when I came back to my room, it was there on my bed.
As I suspected. That may be the key to unlocking this mystery. And we'll get to that next week, or not next week, but in 2 weeks on our next episode of The Next Level. So thank you very much, Greg, for joining us and being Fenmira. That was a wonderful experience.
Awesome.
And hopefully we can have you back at some point to play Fenmira or someone else. And thank you, all of you, for joining us for this evening's adventure. Lots of fun and interesting things that are coming out of this one. I am so excited. And we will get to perhaps even a little bit more next time. So we will see you then. Take care.
Great.